What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at some more wildest wrestling news and rumors you need to know, including Vince possibly stepping back from WWE, Becky Lynch angry over Jon Jones's comments, Stephanie McMahon twists facts, the WWE's Trademark train takes off, an NXT match announced for tonight, and an AEW Faction Flops. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. But let's waste no further time and get straight into the first story, as Vince McMahon might be stepping back from WWE. The WWE's head honcho is sadly growing old, and at the age of 74, he could be taking a step back from the company, as Fightful Select has reported a number of interesting observations backstage. First, they mentioned, "We were told that Vince McMahon was rarely, if ever, at the show between Thanksgiving and the February 5th episode, and over on Raw, it was noted that Vince McMahon was around approximately half the time. Anybody close with Vince McMahon knows that he's a real workaholic, and he's normally there throughout the whole show. But with the XFL having been rebooted, he could have spent most of his time with the football promotion. But do you guys think this would be a right time for Vince to step back from the company? As we mentioned in an earlier news video, the WWE supposedly has no contingency plan if something happens to Vince, as he recently fired both co-presidents George Barrios and Michelle Wilson. Next up, Becky Lynch angry over Jon Jones's comments. UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones recently told of his dream to step into a WWE ring, and in his words, working in the company will be inevitable, with both the sports overlapping in many areas. Whilst Roman Reigns believes he could have a good tussle with the champ, Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch was not so thrilled with his comments, making it as if Jones was ignorant about being a WWE superstar. "There's nothing like what we do. It's not as simple as just walking in here. You have to make a name for yourself, and you have to be obsessed with this. You have to love this. This is a thing where you are fighting 3, 4, sometimes 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And for people to sometimes think it's an easy thing that they can just stroll into, it kind of irks me. It irks me, it does. Because I love this business. I love it more than anything. If Jones loves it too, well, then come along. I'll show you the ropes. But if he doesn't, if he just wants to make some easy money, this ain't the way to do it." We wonder if she gave Tyson Fury the same remark when he stepped into the ring for a cup of coffee. Honestly, her spiel is getting very tiresome. Becky has taken her character and run with it in real life. Next up, did Stephanie McMahon twist some facts? Stephanie McMahon recently sat down with Renee Young at WrestleMania 37's venue, the SoFi Stadium, which is still getting built, and in her words gave us a huge scoop on who invented the Money in the Bank ladder match. She mentioned that since Vince was out of action, blowing out both his quads at the Rumble, he was unable to be around, so the reins of running the show were handed to her, and she made the call to hear wrestlers pitch ideas. But in the interview, it seemed as if she was the one to come up with the idea of the famous gimmick match, and seemingly took all credit, mentioning no other names. However, Chris Jericho has told in the past that he was the one to come up with the idea and pitch it to Vince, who then approved it. Speaking on his Talk is Jericho podcast, he mentioned, "So they were trying to think of something for everybody to do, and they were coming up with all these dumb ideas. Like one of the ideas was for me and Benoit and Edge to have a 3-way submission match." I said, well, that's super boring. A 3-way submission match? The only way you can win is a submission, blah blah blah. It'd be kinda boring. So I came up with the idea to do a match, like a ladder match, a 6-way ladder match. And Brian Gertwitz, who was a good writer at the time, said, "Well, what's at stake?" So I said, "Well, why don't you have a contract where the winner gets a title shot the next night?" Then Brian said, "Well, why don't you make it so you could use it anytime over the following year and you can cash it in at any time?" And so we took that to Vince, and Vince agreed, loved the idea. His only concession was that the contract had to be in a briefcase. Knowing how Vince is, maybe he wanted the people to see it rather than just a piece of paper hanging there, like some kind of actual trophy. Or maybe he thought the briefcase was something you could actually carry and use. So it was a really cool kind of 3-way invention of this match, because even though Vince's little thing was just the briefcase has become synonymous with the show. Jericho mentioned 3 people there: Vince McMahon, Brian Gertwitz, and himself. We didn't hear anything about Stephanie McMahon pitching ideas, or even agreeing to them. Next up, the WWE's Trademark train takes off. The company has been trademarking various intellectual properties, and PW Insider reports the WWE filed for 2 more trademarks, Christian and the Texas Rattlesnake. Now, whilst the Texas Rattlesnakes could be self-explanatory, in regards to Christian, this could be an anticipation of seeing Christian on our screens to further the Edge-Orton storyline leading up to WrestleMania. Or perhaps he may be an inductee to the Hall of Fame. Next up, an NXT match announced. The WWE has announced the 12th February edition of NXT will feature Lio Rush going up against Angel Garza for an opportunity to compete for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. And our final story of today, an AEW Faction Flops. All Elite Wrestling has a surprising number of factions ranging from the Elite to the Inner Circle to the Dark Order. The women's division looked to have a faction when Brandy Rhodes turned heel, managing Awesome Kong, targeting some of AEW's female babyfaces. Before long, Rhodes brought in Mel and Dr. Luther, forming the Nightmare Collective. However, as Brandy told Brian Alvarez and Mike Sempervive on Wrestling Observer Live, things got confusing for the fans and Brandy knew the gimmick wasn't clicking even after she aired videos trying to explain her change in character. As Rhodes put it, I started to see the music was not playing how I liked it. I didn't feel it. Brandy hasn't ruled out the faction continuing, even if it's without her. I'm good with it now, I hope fans are good with it now, and I hope whatever goes on forward from that, they know that this is something that's an open creative thing. Brandy seems to be back to her babyface character as seen when she came out to encourage real-life husband Cody when he had to endure the 10 lashes as part of his quest to secure a match against MJF. As for the Nightmare Collective, it's good that Brandy realized it wasn't working for her. What role do you think Brandy should have on air, or should she focus on her job as AEW's brand officer? Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.